3, 2, 1. Blog Talk Radio.
Hi everybody, welcome in. My name is Ernesto. You're listening to a special edition episode of the Alchemy Annex, which is about soul bonds. We're going to take a quick break just right now for a few minutes here because I'm having some difficulties getting Viretta on the line, so we can go ahead and get that conversation going for you. So give me a few minutes here while I get that set up. I'll be back in about 2 minutes. Thanks. I'll see you soon. Okay, great. Thank you, everybody. Welcome back. I have no idea what is happening at this time. It is so weird. You would almost think it's a Mercury retrograde or something like that, right? So let's go ahead and I will keep trying this and continue the discussion as I'm able to from what I can do here on this end. Just want to welcome everybody into the Alchemy Annex. Today is just that special episode that we will be doing about soul bonds and connections. We've been offline for the past couple of weeks here, just too busy with other projects. So we're coming back on an ad hoc basis. We don't really have a set schedule. We used to be back on a weekly basis, but we're taking a break from that schedule and format for right now just to focus on other things. So do stay tuned and be sure to subscribe, like, and share so you can continue to get those updates about when we will be back. Today is an episode of our podcast. So we will be talking about this issue here today. And when we do our podcast, just to let you know, all of those readings in that show will be general in nature. And we just now got Viretta on the line here. Hello, are you there? Can you hear me right now? Hello? Okay, now there's no audio. Perfect. This is wonderful. So you would really, truly think that it was Mercury retrograde. Here we go. But what I was trying to say here is that our podcast episodes are about holistic life and living, lifestyle skills, healthy choices, self-care, those types of issues, just the general day-to-day life things and how we can make the most out of our day-to-day mundane lifestyle so that we can get the things that we really want. That's what this show is about for the Alchemy Annex. When we do Dialing Into Your Soul, that'll probably be on a Thursday show, much like tonight. We're just not doing it at the moment. Those are going to be our normal free reading call-in shows where you can give us a call, ask us a question about whatever you'd like. But in the podcast format, we tend to keep our readings themed with whatever the subject for the day is. It just works so much easier that way. Now, it is really kind of confusing to me why this is also why I have no co-host right now. And this is a huge part of the show. So just give me a moment while I get that set up and hang on. All right, can you hear me now?
Hello. I can.
Perfect. All right, so glad you made it to the show 5 minutes in, and we are so excited to be
Right.
here with you. So, this is going to be our episode about soul bonds. So let's go ahead and jump right into that and start the conversation. Now, just to let everybody know, if you're watching our podcast on YouTube right now for that visual element of things, the way that it works is the node, which is going to be right here as I mirror my display. You'll see me put up a shape here on the screen. This dragon head type of thing, this is what we call the node. In traditional astrology, what you'll see sometimes is they do what's called another node, but it's flipped upside down. So they have what's called a north node and a south node. Now, that's in traditional astrology. We don't do that in the course of Uranian astrology because when you divide the entire chart by 4, then the north node and the south node essentially become the exact same point. So we can eliminate that confusion of which one am I supposed to use. And then there's the further discussion: is there the mean node or the true node, which has something to do with the movement of that object out in the sky. Now, a lot of people get really super tripped up on which one am I supposed to use. And then, of course, astrology teachers tell you pick the one that works the best for you. And why are you not asking for a refund? Because, like, how am I supposed to know how to learn or how to do something if I'm only choosing what's right for me? And then what I do is very different than what Viretta does, which is 100% different than what my neighbor even does. So, in that regard, this is one of the reasons why traditional Western astrology with houses and signs can sort of fall apart and run into all kinds of issues. But the main takeaway here is that this planet, that dragon's head, is what we call it. This represents our soul bonds, or these represents our connections. This represents our boundaries. If we want to talk about soul bonds, then we would add the meridian to it, which in my chart is relatively close. That's that M that's right next door in the circle. The midpoint of both of those shapes is going to tell you about what the connections or types of energies or people are important to you in your life. I'm going to break that down in just a moment, but just to sort of set up the stage here as far as what we're doing, Viretta, what is a soul bond in the context of relationships, and do you believe in their existence?
Well, if you believe that we have soulmates, then yes, you have to believe in a soul bond. And that would also be interpreted as contract, individual, someone that came in for a reason. But a soul bond basically is someone that is cut from the same cloth. You have the same ideology, you have the same understanding, you're awake, you have a lot going on, or you're not awake. But it's also, you're looking at a mirror image of yourself. And so when you're talking about soul bonds, again, then you're getting into other things that have different names. And they're all basically boil down to the same thing. They're here to do something for you, and you're here to do something for them. And it doesn't necessarily mean it's something that has to, the soul bond itself doesn't mean you have to be connected forever. It doesn't mean you have to be connected at all, for that matter. And this is something that people get really confused on or conflicted on. And there's so much misinformation about what soul bonds, soulmates, twin flames really are, because people don't have, those people that are not understanding what those things are, makes it difficult for anybody else to be able to say, yeah, you know what I'm talking about. It's a standardized something, but it's not. It's very individual. So soul bonds can come for one day or be here today, and they have a reason.
So when we're talking about that, then, like the way I've always understood it is in, let's say, on another timeline, that I was, I don't know, a grocery store employee. And then on this timeline, somebody who works in another type of just general blue collar entry level type of position, they take care of me, whether if that's in a call center or whatever that may be. That's just a regular connection. Like, that's just to serve somebody. That's pretty much a mundane connection. There's nothing significant or really huge about that. The person who brought me my lunch for that day, that doesn't really matter, unless if I happen to go home with them or have a conversation that's a little bit deeper about something else. At that surface level, those types of connections are what they are. But the soul bonds that really matter, those are the people who stick around, and they are very much defined by the planets in your chart. So like in my life, I have been coming to terms with the fact that a lot of the connections that I have in my life are relatively unpleasant. They're just challenging. Everything is difficult or fraught with problems, or people just want to put up a wall and be cantankerous because they can. Regardless of the case, I'm beginning to find I don't like this experience. It's quite distressing. I want an entirely different set of people because this is just too much for me to handle. And what I have been learning through the course of astrology is that you are limited by your potential to what your chart dictates. So for me to have kittens and rainbows, and for me to have clients that can afford, or people that can afford to pay me without having to bribe or put them under duress or anything else like that, just not in the cards. You, on the other hand, Viretta, when I looked at your chart and your connections in life, the people that you work with, or the people that find you, or the people that you connect with, these are going to be primarily the types of people, men and women, who are in love relationships. They're wanting to know about matters of the heart. Perhaps they're stuck in some type of ugly or unwanted situation / scenario. And these are people who can work with you. And you find that these people, not only do they pay you, but they're pleasant. Like, they listen for the most part. There's that one or two that doesn't. But for the most part, you're very fortunate in the sense that the people that you work with understand who you are and what you do. In my life, I haven't quite come to those terms yet. I haven't quite found that magic in things. And what I'm finding, especially when I was preparing for the show tonight, is I have all different kinds of things in my life that are going on as far as those connections are concerned. And so what I am experiencing now is wanting to change or break out of that mold of those relationships that I've attracted for so many years. And when I'm finding I don't want this unpleasantness in my life anymore, well, how do I fix that? I was actually quite surprised to learn that working on my education, like to be a counselor or to be a therapist, like my PhD work in transpersonal psychology that I've been putting off due to other commitments, that's something I actually need to push back into the forefront because it redirects the energy. So instead of feeling depressed and upset that I didn't get what I want, or that people are horrible and people are difficult, instead I'm channeling that energy and focusing on like the science of mind, uplifting myself, learning how to uplift others. I learned in a talk today that there are 4 different behavior or personality types, and this deals more with entrepreneurs. So for example, there is an obliger, and this is the type of person which is going to be most of the people in the population who do not like to, who just don't do anything. And you have to tell them what to do, and then they'll do it for you. But at the same time, these are the people who overcommit and have problems with accountability, and it becomes a slippery slope to where they are just so overcommitted to where they become overwhelmed and then fall downhill. This has been a thing that would be huge for me to work out, because if I can get through to people and connect in a way that's meaningful to them, then I don't have to go through this really weird, screwed up spiritual domination and trying to figure out how can I connect or get through to somebody or bully them into submission, however that may be. That conversation doesn't need to happen. I can just focus on myself by working on that science and mind piece. So that was news to me. That was something I haven't seen before, and I'll be looking into that a lot more. So the whole thing about soul bonds is, like, especially for me, the soul bonds that really matter, like you, Viretta, for example, or the other friends and family the other friends and contacts that I've had over the years. These are people that I know forever. Like, when I meet you, if you and I are meant to be together in whatever capacity, we're going to know each other probably until the end of time. That's just the way that goes. But, I was surprised to learn that is a very different expression of energy than what it means to, let's say, work with the medical assistant at my doctor's office, or to work with the server at this restaurant or hotel or whatever it might be. That, I want to go off and try to forge some new relationships that are of a different character or color than what I'm used to. Like, for example, that doctor's office medical assistant person that I really like and seem to hit it off with. Like, I really want this type of person in my life. So then I open myself up and I become friendly. I try to talk to them and everything else. And because I'm an astrologer and that this deals with talking about your soul and your life's journey, there's a little bit of a piece of friendship that's involved with that and what I do. But what I'm slowly beginning to learn is that doesn't have to be that way anymore. Like, you are an object, you pay me. And after that payment is rendered, and after that 60 minutes, I am going back to not caring about you, because that's that boundary that I need to have. Otherwise, you're just going to abuse me, my time, and my resources. So that way I continue to work and give you things for free. This is a big issue that I've really been wrestling with for the past couple of years. And I'm slowly beginning to realize that there is a super fine line between everyday mundane connections that matter, and connections that I want to have with people, but people are trying to either hustle or manipulate the situation in such a way that they can benefit or gain something. And this is a huge piece that I have worked out in counseling, and I'm continuing to talk about in my own life. And I'm noticing that this is just a thing with me, is the connections that matter, I think they're forever. But that's only if that connection is real. If it's not real, if it's just something, like you're just going to bring me my dinner for this particular moment, then I don't need to know about you and your backstory and all of this other stuff, because that's just inappropriate. That almost borders into Uncle Chester types of territory. And this is something that a lot of us who struggle with social skills and may not have very many people in our lives, that this is something that we all face on a daily basis, is the coworkers that I thought that I was so close to and knew for so many years and joked around, and I thought they were my friends. And then when I retired or got laid off or whatever, they all completely forgot about me, never heard from any one of them again. And it was all just for nothing. It's really upsetting when we have to come to that sort of biting reality that people are terrible and that we are in fact insignificant. But again, like that maybe that's a reflection of we shouldn't be giving so much of ourselves. And that's a big issue between just a regular connection with somebody and a soul bond, is how much of yourself are you really giving here?
Right. And if you're giving more than, so you've got to also remember there's a system equal energy exchange. And if you're giving more than you're receiving, regardless of how that's being reciprocated, then that's where you start. That's where you, like what you're going through right now, that's where you start to get to the point where you're burning out on humanity, because there's nothing there that shows you that you want to participate at that level. But if your healthy boundaries are not a problem for you, and your thick skin is not a problem for you, because you're going to piss people off if you say no, then you do begin to allow people to understand that, that's who you are and what you're expecting. And you set the record straight right off the bat. You don't have to go back and make up for lost time thinking, yeah, I guess you thought I was someone else, because, gee, I don't put up with that stuff. And you don't spend a lot of time on someone that doesn't really care who you are. So, yeah. So the reality of it is that you don't want to put yourself in a position to be used so far that you give up. You give up on everybody altogether, because it just really isn't worth a cup of tea for you to do everything you do for people.
And, this is also a huge narrative that we have with a lot of our subscribers and our callers, is why is it so difficult in today's world just to make a friend? That by me being kind or being nice to somebody, that is immediately viewed as either creepy, or it's pushing too far, or in some instances, it can even be viewed as negatively, in that I'm just kind of like molesting somebody because I've just gone to a totally new level, and then they think that I'm romantically interested, and it's like, no, I do not want to screw you. I'm just trying to be nice. I just want to be your friend here. Like, what happened to kindness? And then and then when you hit that burnout level, you basically become a spiritual incel, to where you just say, let Rome burn, and I don't care. Go away, fly a kite. This happens,
Yep.
and
Yep.
how
Yep.
you recover from that is an entirely different story. But the main takeaway here is the fact that when we're dealing with these types of energies, how the hell do we pull ourselves out of the funk that we're stuck in so that we can actually start to achieve the things that we want in life?
Yeah, and that's that right there. That's the catch to it. How do we not get caught? Well, so then we have to ask ourselves, what part of it is getting caught? It's our ego or our emotions. We're feeling, unappreciated, unwanted, needed maybe, but to an excess that I'm not comfortable with any longer. And when you look at why we don't make the kind of friends we did 40 years ago, 50 years ago, 60 years ago, what's that common denominator that took everybody out of the public and put them right in their own home? The internet. So you grew up, your generation and younger, never knew the horror, if you will, of not being able to communicate online, not being able to stay hid behind a screen and know that no matter what you say, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. They're not going to find you. And it changed the dynamic of the way people interact with each other. And that's unfortunately the case for you because, Ernesto, if you were born 10, 15 years earlier, honey, you've been all right. They would have anybody generationally would have just assumed you're down on your luck and you had a hard life and gee, let's help him, let's take care of him, let's support him with whatever he wants. And it's amazing what a couple of decades of generation, it seems like it's changed the entire dichotomy of what we think we are as a race, as a people, as a nation, as any kind of determinant factor. So we are, without that social interaction, we're losing our grace as far as how to communicate with others. And that's the shape that we don't, if it weren't for schools, kids wouldn't get out to know anybody anymore these days because they're right back home in front of the tube or the computer. And my generation and decades prior to my generation grew up on the street, come home before dark, and don't get wet. Okay, how hard is that? So the difference in who we are now as a culture we need to change or shift what's acceptable in human race's criteria of what we should perform or what we should offer or who we are or what we're about. And we're not the same. We're not the same as we were 30, 40, 50 years ago. So everything is changing, but that's the nature of the beast. Everything has to change for positive growth or any kind of growth for that matter.
But then what happens when you continuously get the same results, right? And this happens a lot in astrology too, by the way. Like I look at something and I say, okay, so there's obviously one of three different exit points or dates when we expect something to happen or pass through a chart where something will manifest, and it's one of those three dates, and only one of those three is going to be significant. The other two, however, are sort of like checkpoints or exams along the way. Are you paying attention? Are you really integrating the lesson that's trying to be shown here right now? Those are those other two dates that we see along the way. But leading up until that third really big event that we're expecting to pass through the chart, then what happens is we're manifesting the same things. Like I've had the experience where I hit it off with somebody, had terrific conversations with somebody, and it was just kind of like we were basically ready to like jump into bed together. It was just that hot, and it was just we connected that well. And then all of a sudden, radio silence. it was like after
Mm-hmm.
I would follow up the next day. It's like, hey, do you want to go do X? And then it was just again the same narrative. Everything is problems. Everything is difficult. It's just like no, no, no. And then I feel like some desperate teenage girl who's trying to get somebody's attention. And what's happening is that I am being ignored. So then it starts, to beg the question: does this really matter? And when you're continuously faced with these types of situations where it looks so great and then radio silence or you get ghosted or perhaps they get back to you or dry text you maybe 3 weeks later after you did something, then it becomes very insulting. And then we reach that spiritual incel territory where it's kind of like, you can go fly a kite now. And I think that I'm going to go hire a hooker and take care of this other need that I think that I have because this is not for me. This emotional cancer that I'm giving myself over this situation is not worth it. So
Yeah.
when we're continuously getting those same results, number one, how do we deal with that or to break free from it? And also, like, am I broken? Am I the reason why I keep getting radio silence with all of these people?
Well, so you do have to look at the common denominator, and if that's you going into every relationship with the same routine or the same backstory, then maybe that's what your problem is. You're attracting the people that you hope will allow you to be heard and continue on in a positive relationship. So how do you quit doing that? Well, first you find the crux of it. What makes you that way? Why are you doing it? What are you attracted to in that environment that you think you need to keep going back? And then we have to say, well, if the same thing happened regardless of the environment, each and every time you met someone, it may be worth your while to really do some objective thinking about yourself and find out what's going on with the real, dating scene. They're still out there. They're still dating. It's just like I said, there's no personal touch to it any longer. And we don't care to make any personal touch, until we're ready to have that touchy-feely. We don't care to make any personal attachments unless we see that there's a benefit for us. We're not needing to do anything like that, so we just don't. Again, the generation is different. But at this point, what we're looking at when we're definitely in a position to say, okay, I don't know what's going on. The same thing keeps happening. I don't think I'm doing anything different. I don't think I'm doing anything wrong, for that matter. It very well could be absolutely where you're going, and you're going to have to find another place to kind of habitate, if you will, not live, but just, hang out and function in other areas to see who else you might attract, appeal to, and that might be and that though for you may be very scary. And so you have to be fairly comfortable, fairly quick with whoever you're going out on, because you're vulnerable. There are just certain things about who you are makes you vulnerable. So you have to be careful going out there. I would say the biggest thing that you would want to do is honestly look at what it is that your expectation is when you go out, period. What are you expecting to do? Are you expecting to hook up with somebody the first night out? Are you expecting to have sex? Are you expecting to have a long-lasting relationship? It's really kind of dependent upon what your intent is that will dictate to you what the outcome is. So you're all about just wanting to make friends. You're all about just really kind of wanting to be in a position of having people. And what you have to look at, since you're stalling out time and time again, is where you're looking. Where are you looking that makes it so difficult for you to find someone that you could be, in a relationship with, even if it wasn't a romantic, but just a personal. And I think also that most likely that is something you have enough of, just platonic friends. That may be something that you need to start looking at as a key indicator that when you are only going out looking for friends is when you were finding the people that really appeal to you. So I would think that maybe also we're looking at our approach to who we want to have in our life, because most definitely, it's not all that easy, again. So we're rearranging the way we think about how we date, who we want to attract, and what we are doing that seems to be the common denominator. And when I say what we're doing, I'm not saying doing anything wrong. What I'm saying is take a look at what is your normal. And that is going to be something that you will have to decide if you want to have friends or that type of relationship. How are you going to approach someone? And maybe you need a new normal. There's so many reasons, but for you, it really does boil down to your vulnerability and who you are. And that vulnerability makes you who you are, but it's still a little bit touchy about what you can and can't do comfortably, smoothly, without having to struggle, without having to fight, without having to vague or stalk or constantly be there hoping that, guy comes around the corner like he has a million other times and bumps into you. When you let go of the idea of what they have to provide you something, then you're going to receive the more. I guarantee it.
Okay, so if I'm understanding this correctly, it seems to me that my intent, not my, but all of our, the individual's intent or motivation going into something, if I'm going to say, I'm going to go out, I'm going to go out tonight and I want to go out and meet somebody, whether this is a friend, with the expectation that this leads to something romantic, whether it begins platonic or not, that this is the ultimate expectation. So it's my understanding then that this is actually the self-sabotaging fuel in that whole process, is the fact that I am manifesting things that go away because it's not reflective of me not caring in that moment.
Exactly. And you're manifesting what will go away because you still aren't sure about how much you can carry, how much of a relationship that may be demanding, very demanding to you, how much you can carry.
And that's really quite
and
poignant.
And with you personally.
Go ahead.
Yeah. That's for you, that personally is a big thing. Because you can't bring someone on into your life that you are going to have to carry and you're going to have to make room for and hold space for and constantly, make them believe that they're okay, nothing else is happening, soothe them when they're crying. You don't need that. You don't.
And it's quite poignant that you said what we're talking about here, because one of the things that I very much struggle with in this entire process is I try to gaslight myself and I say, well, maybe the reason that this isn't happening is because I need to do X, Y, Z in order for all of that to, to take place. Because if I'm going to be friendly, platonic, romantic, sexual, whatever word you want to use with somebody else, and I'm going to have somebody in my life that now becomes a priority, then that means that all of the other irons that I have on the fire get put into the back burner, because that's going to basically, this other person basically consumes everything that I am to make that all possible.
Correct.
So, I gaslight myself in the process and say that, maybe this just isn't happening because it's not the right time, because I still have other work that I need to do. And, what I'm beginning to realize is that actually is gaslighting and that it doesn't do anything. It doesn't help my mental state at all. It just puts me more into that spiritual incel where it's like, go fly a kite. I don't care. I just want to self-medicate. That's basically what ends up happening. Is I get so overwhelmed that I just start to self-medicate because I say, all y'all are broken and I just can't handle it. So I need to go put my head into a cloud right now where it'll feel better.
Yeah. See, and you actually see that's the beauty about you. You can, like that, what you just said right there, you figured something out about something that was happening that you didn't want to deal with anymore. And now all of a sudden, oh, wow, maybe that was gaslighting. Oh, wow, maybe I'm really not doing myself any justice by thinking that here. And you're starting to really pick up on the school of thought that maybe it is me and I'm the common denominator. So what do I need to do? And reboot, sweetheart. Click yourself into reset and come out smelling like roses. Actually, what you want to do is you want to come out smelling like roses, like nothing has ever pissed you off. And when you're growing gentle in your mannerisms and characteristics and who you are, then that's when the good stuff comes in. That's when the guy comes in that will hold your heart and carry it with pride and never hit you with suspicion in regard to what you do. And so that for you would be the perfect person that could give you that kind of room and share space with you and share similar thoughts, but be very gentle. You really need a gentle individual. No matter really where you're looking, you are in a position of associating with folks that could hurt you. So you want to be in a position of being careful. You want to be in a position of not taking chances like that. So I would say look for someplace new to go. Just for a couple times.
And that whole process of alchemy and to be clear, alchemy is defined as by me modifying my own actions and going outside of myself to change something about myself that promotes growth. I'm probably going to be a little bit uncomfortable in that entire process because growth is never comfortable, very simply. But by me going outside of myself to change these other things that I don't really care for, then I'm going to be attracting different sets of people along the way. So if I meet somebody one day and then that fizzles away because I had the expectation that there was going to be a romance or a sexual hookup or whatever it was, and then it's gone, and then I meet somebody else in my life, even the chart will actually show you, there's you'll meet somebody here, but that doesn't necessarily mean that it's a guarantee, because remember that soul bonds, at least I would think, are a two-way street. Like if that's something that they really want, but I'm not really too sure about it because that's not the place where I'm at in my life, then I can say no. Or if they're really excited and I'm just kind of like, nope, that's everything that was in my old life, don't want, send them back, then they go away too. So this is a thing that just because you see that there is a relationship in a chart doesn't necessarily mean that that's actually going to come to fruition, because number one, those are two entirely separate questions. And also based on the alchemy or the energy in the universe, what happens can change based on my own actions and my life path. And the same is true for that other person.
Right. Exactly.
So I do want to take some time here to catch up with our callers, and we do have, looks like that everybody is just listening at this time because I don't see any hands up. Remember to give us a call here at area code 519-527-6071. And if you would like to speak with us here on the air, be sure to press option number 1, and that does raise your hand to let me know that you would like to speak with me. I don't see any hands up at this time, so I imagine that everybody is just listening because we are a great radio show, I'll be honest. We are a totally unique operation out here. So next question I have for you, Viretta, about soul bonds is that, can soul bonds form between friends, family members, or is it a primarily romantic concept? And then how do soul bonds differ from traditional romantic connections or friendships?
So the first question, so restate the first question.
Okay, so the first question is, can soul bonds form between friends, family members, or is it primarily a romantic concept?
Okay, so no, it's not primarily a romantic process. Oftentimes you find people that are the best of friends, and when that didn't go any farther than friendship, but it lasted their entire life. Soul bonds can go away absolutely, with no notice, and you're in a position of trying to figure out why. It's not about you, it's about them. Soul bonds don't have to come into play until much, much later in your life. So it doesn't matter what you make of it. It can be platonic, it can be romantic, but a soul friend is coming in with a reason. And like I said before, those contracts are something that you negotiated long before you ever got here in the physical. And they did too. So inevitably, you're going to find each other. But again, this is no given that person's going to stay in your life forever. It just means that you contracted, your soul bond with this individual is great, and you are there to satisfy or make indemnified those people that are looking to have anything more than just a date. You're going to want to think that something like that would be so special. It would be, a familiar thing on a regular basis where people keep, meeting other people. But again, like I said, internet.
For sure, yeah, because like we can even have soul bonds between like a teacher and a student, somebody who absolutely
Yep.
transformed your life and went above and beyond expectations to really take care of somebody. Like these things happen, and especially in the context of Uranian astrology, seeing that at least two of the planets that are involved with Uranian astrology are also dealing with karma. That means that if you're working with me and this work, then you and I probably have some strings between each other from other lifetimes, which is why we're doing this again now. And what you'll see is that like the people that I am very close with in my professional life, like the people who I have taught and the people who really understand the way that not only my brain, but also the way that this astrology works, those people are what I would consider soul bonds. Like these are people I have contracts with. These are souls that I made agreements with out in the ethers when I was planning this lifetime, that we would work together and that all of these things would happen. And, what's a great example of this is like my co-author for my textbook is somebody who I absolutely have some soul bonds and some karma with. And guess what? This person is a retired teacher, which is exactly right up my alley when it comes to the things that I need for content writing, which is the nature of my textbook. And all of that stuff is still in process, and I'm working on a new format right now. But the main thing here is that when I made the connection with this person, everything clicked. It was just kind of like total opposite of everything is broken and everything is problems. It was like, oh my God, you are like an Adonis. Thank you so much for making my life easy. I didn't know that this was even possible. But that's because that relationship was meant to work out. But then the people who I sort of poke and prod and try to exploit or manipulate or hustle a situation so that I can get the things that I want, then those are the ones that go away and that are fraught with problems. So that's really the distinction between them, of the not caring and people finding me, and then the people that I really want to be with, but are just sort of like window shopping, right? They're just like that really pretty puppy or dress that you see, and it's like, hey, I would like that. And so you buy it, and then you take it home and you open the box and everything, and then you realize 20 minutes into it, okay, I'm kind of over this now. Can I return it? And when it comes to having a child, that's definitely something you can't do, which is why I'm never having children.
And most definitely you can't return those, no.
So this has been a big thing with this whole process of attracting people in life. Is kind of like, why am I broken? Is it me or is it them? And when it continues to happen so many times, you really have to take a look at yourself. And it's like that trope of that guy that in literally any workplace, the womanizer who has like a different flavor of the week. And then at the end of the day, like maybe after a couple of months and dating all of these different people, he comes to the conclusion that women are bitches, that women are crazy, that they're not worth a damn. Well, when you look at his actions, are they the crazy ones or is he the crazy one? Because why is he having a flavor of the week, right? So that's kind of where you enter that really dangerous mental territory. And I'll be honest that when we begin to get curious about things, curiosity didn't necessarily kill the cat. But curiosity is the secret ingredient for inciting change and growth.
Yes, and it's all mother of invention is necessity. So curiosity is right there, trying to figure out how to scope that problem out and fix it.
And it's huge because when it comes to things like our mind will automatically sabotage ourselves from something that we know is healthy for us, regardless of what all of the literature and studies and everything else say. But our mind will sabotage us and say, you're not getting this because we don't want that for you. Like your mind just puts up a roadblock and says, nope, that pill's not working. We're not taking that. We're going to make you sick as hell so that it doesn't happen. And, this is a thing that we have to become aware of, is that when our mind poisons us like that and we can't really move forward for that particular reason, then that's when we need to have that sense of curiosity to look at the other side of the coin and start to wonder, now what happens if I change things? Because remember that, Christopher Columbus didn't just spontaneously wake up one day and decide to go and discover the New World. That there was a definite process over time where he started to realize, is the world really square? Is it really what they want us to believe? What if there is something else out there? Then you start that whole train of logic and thought, and that breaks into new territories and new heights. And that's really what we're all about here today. So that's the thing about curiosity, is that when we don't want to change ourselves, challenge your thoughts and say, now what happens if I do that thing that I don't want to? And then, what is it really going to look like or take for me to make that happen? And you start to, conjure up whatever that scenario might look like, and then ask yourself more questions. Now, what about that is scary to me? Why do I think that sounds bad? What are the potential benefits of this? When you do that really deep subconscious rooting of understanding what prevents you from getting the things that you really want in life, then that sparks that curiosity and that want for actually wanting to do that thing that you've been avoiding for so long. And this is a huge thing, especially for people who are caught in corporate lifestyle jobs. Viretta, I know you have had this experience for sure. You meet these clients and people, and they're just kind of all into spirituality and metaphysics and all of this kind of stuff. But meanwhile, they are stuck in some really crappy job that just never ends, and it's toxic and unhealthy. They're probably neglecting a lot of their self-care issues, and they hear it, and they recognize that they're not paying attention or doing the work themselves. And, it just becomes an eat, work, sleep, rinse, and repeat in perpetuity, where people go crazy. And this happens all the time, where people get stuck in these lifestyles and they don't know how to get themselves out, because how am I going to pay my bills? How am I going to pay my mortgage? Or is my husband going to leave me when they find out that I decided to do the eat, pray, love movement and I quit my job so that I could move to India kind of thing? If everybody went off and did that, the world would be in shambles. So thank you very much for the people who are sane in this world who didn't do that. But it really almost starts to borderline to where people are hacks, so if you're really psychic and spiritual and all of these things that you say that you are, then why are you still stuck in this crappy 9-to-5 job that's just draining everything that you are?
And that's a valid point, because honestly, people, and so I have a good explanation, but so these people think though that in relation to spirituality, just because you can be awake and understand your abilities and know how they operate doesn't mean you're spiritual. And it doesn't mean, and spirituality doesn't mean you're weak either. So you've got a whole dynamic of people that look to see if they can do something that's easy, and when it isn't, then they give up and they, assume that it's not something that can be done because they didn't do it. So,
and so,
hard one way or the other.
This goes back into law of attraction kind of stuff, of where people are wanting one lifestyle for themselves or wanting one thing that is totally the polar opposite of what they're currently living. And then Uranian Astrology teaches us that we are limited by the potential that we're given in our birth chart, and we can't do a whole lot more aside from that. Now, when we reach a point in life where we're not really too sure about how we want to go forward, then what is it going to take to make the plunge and just jump off the cliff and say, I don't care what happens? The plan B here is, I don't know what the future is, and I'll deal with it in the moment as it comes along. This is actually a big thing when it comes to life planning and human psychology, is that what is your A game, the plan that you're focusing on right now? Now, what is your backup plan? A lot of people don't have a backup plan. In my case, I've always been of the belief a backup plan is never acceptable. It is never an option. The only backup plan that really matters that I abide by, I won't know those details until I'm there, because that's called me living in the moment and figuring things out one day at a time.
There you go. And that honestly is the best approach to take, no matter what you're trying to create. Then you open up to spirit so that you can be attracting those people that you want, and satisfied that they really are good people. They're really good people, not only just for you, but period. So that's what you're doing right there when you detach and just go in it for the whatever, I'm having fun, doesn't matter what the end result is when those people will start to show up. And it won't take any time before you start to realize that that manner of activity is what's going to net you good people.
And the other thing too is that the piece about non-attachment is just so critical, because if I go into this thinking, okay, so I'm gonna meet up with you tonight, and then maybe we'll go out a few times, and then 3 to 6 weeks later, then we'll go out on a trip or on a vacation, and then I'll be in bed with you, kind of thing, and married within a year. Whatever that game plan is, give it up. Just don't do it. I'm actually at a point in my life where I am so overwhelmed by so many different things in my life that I have this impending sense of doom or failure. Like, I cannot get everything done in one day. It's just not possible for me to focus on all of these things at the same time. So I didn't even so much as do any planning. I couldn't even write up like a schedule 7 days to say, I'm going to work on A today, and I'll work on B in the afternoon, and then tomorrow I'll do these other things. And maybe a few days later I'll try it again. I'm not doing that. I'm just waking up in the morning. I'm doing what I feel like. I do it for 11 minutes. If I've had enough, then I walk away. If I'm enjoying it, I keep doing it. The reason why 11 minutes, because when our mind is resistant to something, regardless of what that is, if that's self-care related, perhaps it's cleaning the house, doing some work-related task, making a phone call, whatever it may be, the first 10 minutes is the dread and the hate. And the 11th minute, your brain gives it up and finally says, okay, let's try this for real now and see how it is. So you get 60 whole seconds for your brain to decide, okay, so this isn't so bad. It's not so threatening in the way that I thought that it was. And that's when you decide, okay, so if I'm enjoying myself, then I'll keep on going for another half hour or however long that you dictate. Just make sure to put a period so that there's a boundary and you can focus on other things. I've gone by that approach this past week, and it's really taken away the sense of doom or failure that I have in my life, because I know that I'm overwhelmed. I know that I'm drowning in everything, but there ain't a damn thing that I can do about it. I cannot magically manipulate time to create more of it. If I could, then I would be God, and then why are we even here, right? So
Right.
this has been my whole thing, is just one day at a time. And this is something that's very difficult for, it's a pill that's very hard for me to swallow as somebody who is always living 3 steps ahead into the future.
See, and they're not living life. If they're 3 steps ahead, or they're trying to create a nirvana where they don't have to feel anything, they're not living. They're not living life. They're not here for what they're for. They're wasting a whole lot of valuable time by trying to be what they're not. It's not something that people need to identify with, as far as, the yogi-isms and all the places people could go to receive that kind of enlightenment. Don't sit right home. Sit right home. That whole internet thing, sit right home and start looking inside to see what you want to change about you, even if it's just the way you look at people. Like when you're going outside and you're interacting with public, it may be as simple as just changing the way you interact. So don't give up, and don't think anything is too hard, because the minute you do, you just sold yourself short.
And
anytime anyone says, "Oh, that's too hard," they're selling themselves short.
And the other thing too is that it doesn't matter how long it takes you to achieve the results. Just keep on doing the same things over and over again.
Yep.
That's the consistency is the most important thing of all in the whole process. Like, I feel beat down quite often because it's like we've been running the show at a loss ever since day one. Like the concept of getting people to pay me out of pocket for my professional services offline, slim to none at the moment. I'm not too focused on that because I don't have time to focus on that anyway. But I'm beginning to realize this is not a focus that I need to have in my life of client work. This is just not for me at the moment. I have too many other things I need to work on. So I need to kind of give that up and focus on the other things that I'm feeling that impending doom or failure about. And in doing so, it gives me the sense of clarity or peace of mind that I know where things are heading. So I've always been of the belief, really, it's been a narrative of my life story. I want something, whether if that's a group of people to start up, if that's to start a new job, if that's to start a new enterprise or business, whatever it is, getting people together, getting people to agree, or getting people very simply to work with me can be quite challenging sometimes. So I reinvent the wheel. I do everything that I possibly can to innovate and to make things different and exciting. So that way it's just the same concept, but it's just been reiterated in a way that's more meaningful to me in that given moment for where I'm at in life. But then I'm still failing. I'm still not getting what I want. And it really becomes like a case of the ballroom brawler, right? Where I'm doing the same thing over and over and over again, getting beat down and beat down and beat down. How, Ernesto, how the hell do you wake up in the morning when you know that you're just going to get beat down anyway?
Right.
I truly don't know the answer to that. But you know, if I ever gave up, then that would be called death. So that's the way that I look at it.
Yeah. And you can defeat yourself. Most definitely that self-sabotage comes in real easy. But again, you also have to remind yourself on a regular basis, after you tell the beatdowns to shut the hell up, that you are worth something. You are actually here to make a difference. Who is going to be qualified for that? We don't know. Just keep putting it out there, though. Fact is, you don't know from one minute to the next who it is that you're going to benefit from being alive from. So when people get real short with their experience and just can't tolerate trying anything new anymore, they're definitely selling themselves short for having any kind of pleasure because they're shutting the door to everything.
Okay, so we're going to get off to, we're almost out of time, and I do want to take one call. Rosemaria has been waiting here in line, so we're going to get off to you in just a moment. I do want to explain, though, that we have changed the format of our readings in this type of podcast show. So what will be happening is Viretta and I will each give you a general overview of 1 to 2 minutes long about your soul relationships or bonds in life. And then we'll each have a minute at the end to sort of summarize. At the 5-minute mark, you will hear this sound. And that will let you know that we are pretty much out of time and we need to close down the show. At that 7-minute mark, the call will disconnect, just so that way we can close out the stream. So let me go ahead and put Rosemaria here on the line. Hi, Rosemaria. We got you here. Can you hear us right now?
Yep, I can. How are you guys?
Perfect. Great. And
Good.
now, Viretta, what you got here for Rosemaria about a general on soul relationships or bonds?
All right. So it would look to me that, Maria, you've had one or two. You actually had people in your life that were soul bonds. And it was not a forever kind of after sort of thing. It was most definitely very, very simple, short, not a lot of, probably wasn't even a big connection other than whatever it was you were doing in the moment with that individual, and you just felt that spark. A lot of times we feel that we don't know what it is kind of energy that would indicate to us that something is happening about the way we feel. And so I would say, Maria, you've got some pretty cool people that have been in your life. I'm not seeing that contemporary energy around you right now, and I'm not seeing that for you in the very near future. So let's see if Ernesto can give you a little bit more of a pinpoint on maybe when you can expect this person to be coming in at you and give you some good life. So Ernesto, you got her chart up?
I do, yes. And if you can watch our YouTube cast right now, I do have the chart up on the screen. So what we're looking at is the midpoint of your nodes, which has to do with your soul bonds or connections. This also is going to deal with your boundaries. So we're looking at the midpoint of these two different circles that you'll see up on the screen here in just a moment. There we go. Perfect. So when we look at this, what we're finding then is that you absolutely have some changes that are coming into effect here. And I think that this is really just going to be like you are doing a lot of cleaning house. Like there's a lot of people that maybe aren't the best for you or the healthiest, or, maybe they're just very simply brokering in BS. Like I'm really working on myself right now so I can become so that I can become a functional and healthy meth addict. What the hell is that? A healthy and functional meth addict? On what planet is that okay? So like these are the types of people that you're, starting to eradicate or delete from your life. And there's definitely a sense of, I think, depression that's associated with it, because it's kind of like, well, that sucks. Now I'm kind of by myself here. But really what's going on is you're just making room for new and better things. Is it love related? I don't think so. I believe that there are just new friends, new contacts. So getting into what we were speaking about at the beginning of the show, which I don't think you were here for, use completely different avenues to connect or meet with people, because that's how you're going to attract those different types of energies or souls into your life. But you absolutely do have some new changes coming in. Now, as those changes, I want to say that they're going to be probably within, let me see here. You should be starting to notice things like definitely within the next 12 months, like some things will slowly start to shift and change along the way. But the main like love relationship, if that's a thing, that's a totally separate thing you'd have to hire me for, because I need to ask that question to your chart. As far as the general is concerned, for soul bonds and boundaries, you're just getting rid of people, and it's kind of unpleasant, and it's creating some heartache, but you're also making room for new and better things, because the toys that are in your life right now just aren't for you. Viretta, do you have something that you want to add to that?
I would say don't, like, if you're feeling like maybe, you do that change is definitely coming, most definitely. But if you're feeling like you're stuck or you're not sure what we're talking about or pertains to, I think you need to wait that time frame. I think what Ernesto is telling you is also the same. You do have somebody, something, people, just not right now. And if you just stay open, you stay aware of what's going on all the time, then you have the opportunity to attract those people into your life. Yep. So yes. I would say don't get all wigged out if you don't get anything on the line before next year, because that's just the way it is.
And this deals with the same issue, but it's going to seem a little bit obscure and off base. But the big piece of advice that I would give to you at this point is be leery of lending people money. There's something about the exchange of money when it comes to meeting new people that gets a little bit dicey and curious, to like in a really bad way. So like those are the connections that I would definitely avoid. Anything that involves you paying out of pocket or upfront to do some kind of thing. And I don't mean like romance scams or catfishers or anything like that. I'm just talking very simply about like, hey, did you hear about that they're going to be having this new play at this theater house in this really scary part of town that nobody likes? And then you get robbed along the way, kind of thing. Like these are the types of things that I would be leery of. I feel like that there is definitely some confusing energy when it comes to that. So that's the main thing that I would suggest for you in that process.
Okay. Cool.
All right. Well, we do want to thank you for giving us a call. We'll catch up with you real soon. Be sure to let us know how it turns out.
I will. Thank you.
Until next time, take care.
Thank you.
Okay, and we are going to go ahead and close out the show for tonight. It was real as always. We will be back at a future date. We don't know when that's going to be. We're just too busy with other things and meeting up when we can. It was a great show. So glad that we could be in here with you guys tonight. And we look forward to doing this for the next time, whenever that may be. For all other things Uranian Astrology, be sure to go over to that link tree that's listed in the show description on BTR or on YouTube. And that gives you all of the links to our websites. You can find Viretta at VirettaVision.com. My website is currently down. Our patron program is currently on fire. Everything is changing because the ship is sinking and I need to do something about it, but it's just not that right time. We haven't gotten low enough yet.
Yep. So when we have the time, we'll be back.
Absolutely.
And otherwise, hit us up individually.
Yep. Be kind to yourselves, you guys. Take care. And until next time, good luck and good night.
Good night.